Good afternoon and welcome to Moments with Melinda. My guest today is Alec Webb. Hi, Alec.
Hi, Melinda.
How are you today on this unseasonably warm couple of days?
It's gorgeous out here. I'm great, thanks.
You're doing well. Well, that's wonderful. Let me share with my viewers a little bit about your illustrious life. Alec Webb is the president of Shelburne Farms. He helped plan and coordinate the development of Shelburne Farms as a nonprofit organization and has been active in local land use planning, agriculture, and environmental education projects for many years. In 2006, Alex was awarded an honorary Doctor of Science degree from Middlebury College. Vermont Governor Madeleine Kunin honored Alec in 1990 for his extraordinary contributions to Vermont, and he received the Vermont Land Trust Richard W. Carbin Community Conservation Award in 1998. So there you go. That's just a small, minute touch of your extraordinary life and what you have contributed to Vermont and to our world. So here we go.
Right.
Now, Alec, Shelburne Farms has been a big part of your entire life. Would you share with my viewers a little bit about growing up at Shelburne Farms?
Sure. Actually, I was at a conference one time, and the person who was speaking said something like, "All of you in the room who, if you go back to your home place, don't recognize it, raise your hand." And I was ambivalent about that because our family home was near the dairy barn. So for those of you who know Shelburne Farms, there's the milking barn, and as you're going towards the lake on the way to the inn on the right, and our family home was just maybe 200 or 300 yards north of the milking barn. So my dad built that barn in 1952, which was the year I was born. So we grew up in a house that was just through the woods from the milking barn. So our world, and that's one of 6 kids, there's 6 of us in my generation. So our world was very, I don't know if small is the right word, but it was about our home and the milking barn and the farm operations. And it was on Orchard Point, which was, there was a calf barn, and we had a horse barn and stuff. So but today it's a more of a residential area. So if I went back, or when I go back to Orchard Point, it's a completely different environment than I grew up in. And Shelburne Farms is also a lot different in that, again, when we were growing up, it was a working dairy farm. So that was our whole context for growing up. And now it's, this amazing, it still is, even I guess the thread of continuity is the working farm, but it's just so, enjoyed by so many people now in so many different ways. It's really also quite a different environment.
But what an incredible life growing up on this dairy farm on that incredible piece of property. And you've been there your whole life, and you live there with your parents and your siblings, and just what a beautiful, wonderful childhood you must have had. So who or what do you believe helped to focus your life's work on promoting and educating humans on the importance of our planet's health? Who had the greatest influence on you, Alec?
Oh, wow. Well, I was sent off to private school fairly young, in the 5th grade, which is like, I can't imagine sending one of my kids off in 5th grade. So that was good in terms of like maybe learning study skills and, discipline, doing homework and that type of thing. It wasn't so great in the emotional IQ world. But I was in an environment in the 60s, so I graduated from high school in 1970, that while there were benefits, from the kind of the intellectual side, it felt like I was in kind of a bubble, and that the education I was getting was kind of disconnected from what was going on in the 60s in the real world. So there were teachers, there were, the readings that we were doing, Dana Meadows and others, early on, the early environmental thinkers and writers, Rachel Carson and others. So I think it was, Yeah, it's hard to for me to pinpoint a single individual, but it was more the context of growing up in the 60s with the and feeling this desire to um, seek more meaningful educational opportunities for myself and as a way of creating change in the world.
You were part of the 60s revolution, as was I, and we can attribute, civil rights and women's rights and disability rights and environmental rights Earth Day to
Yep.
the 17% of our youth who stood up and were revolutionaries. And
Yeah. So you had Shelburne Farms, in that kind of was under increasing development pressure, when suburban, the strip development was pushing south on Route 7. So you had, those pressures in the context of the global situation is what led to the thinking around creating a nonprofit organization that could use Shelburne Farms as a resource for, helping address some of those larger societal and environmental issues.
which is what you did. So to my viewers, how would you characterize Shelburne Farms as somebody who has lived there and helped it to grow to what it is today? How would you characterize Shelburne Farms?
Well, Shelburne Farms today is this amazing place for learning. We're an education organization, and our mission is to inspire and cultivate learning for a sustainable future. So it's this combination of this incredibly beautiful working farm and landscape with an educational idea that goes far beyond this place, but is grounded in place. So I'd like to think of Shelburne Farms as this amazing local community resource that is, globally connected through a network of organizations and individuals who are concerned about the future of our world.
And it's one of the top 5 places that people go to visit when they come to Vermont.
Yeah, and we have this interesting dynamic. I mean, we don't promote ourselves as a tourist attraction because we really want. We're an educational organization with this amazing campus that we want to welcome people to come and enjoy, but we're here to create this place of learning, not just to get as many people as possible to come, and visit and leave. It's really one of the things I love about through COVID was, you have people from the local community coming out to walk, multiple times a week. So that kind of, as opposed to someone just coming and experiencing Shelburne Farms and leaving and not coming back, it's that kind of deep connection with the local community is what really is a lot of what makes Shelburne Farms, I think, so special.
But I've had people who have come from other countries staying with us who go to Shelburne Farms and go back.
Yeah.
Came from with what they took away from Shelburne Farms. So it inspires and creates wisdom in people's hearts who have gone there. I think it's one of the great wonders of the world. But anyway, so Alec, what do you consider the greatest challenges you have faced as you worked to create this internationally revered and inclusive experience known as Shelburne Farms?
Well, I definitely have been working for a long time on this, but Shelburne Farms is not here because of me.
No.
There are so many people who have made it work in a way, and I feel like part of my role has been maybe like a stagehand in a way, like creating an environment where amazing people can do amazing work here. And there've been so many that along the way that have done that. So
you're like the wizard in a way, helping,
well,
or the conductor, maybe the conductor or the director. But what is one of the greatest challenges? Was it taking it as a family home and respite and turning it into the nonprofit, or was it? What do you feel were some of the greatest challenges? And to my viewers who may not know this, Shelburne Farms is is in Shelburne, Vermont. So I want to, and I also want you to know that their website is shelburnefarms.org, and I suggest you visit their website.
Yeah. So the challenges, they're keep evolving, you know. So in the the nonprofit was incorporated in 1972, and it was just an idea. The place is still owned privately by my father, and so I guess that the challenge at that time was envisioning a different, future for this place. Because if it had just kind of gone the normal course of events, it would have become a high-end subdivision, I guess, suburban subdivision or a golf course or whatever, private club. So I think the first step was re-envisioning a different future, and then the reality was like, then how do you realize that future? And it was it was a community coming together to help think about and bring that along. So our family, so my dad had to think about how to handle things, and we all asked him to leave the property of the nonprofit. So which he did. When he died unexpectedly at I'm 70, he dropped dead at 70 from a heart attack, and he was the kind of old school where he hadn't discussed his estate plan with us explicitly. Kind of, his will was his business type thing. But when he had in fact decided to leave the property of the nonprofit. So that was the good news, is that 6 of us didn't inherit it and then divided up. So it went to the single nonprofit entity, but there was no endowment. There, all the major buildings were falling to the ground. There wasn't revenue to cover the operating expenses, we had through the 70s. My first wife Marilyn was played a role in with my Marshall, who passed away last year, and others starting planting the seeds of the education program. So they were there, but they were still in early developmental phase. So it was, how do you build a board, build a staff, create sources of revenue, and build a program. And so that's what we've been working on since then. And now we have this amazing place, but now we have to think about the next 50 years and setting that up for success. And but it's, so in the 80s, Megan Camp was my partner, and we've had this part, we've been working together in a leadership role with Marshall, since the 80s. And the challenge is on the program end, how do you take some great programs that are serving a local audience and create an international network of educators that are making a difference in their own schools and communities around the world. So I don't know, it's how to weave together, all of the different aspects of Shelburne Farms into this wonderful whole, that is inspiring and cultivating learning for a sustainable future. That's the big challenge, and we're making steady progress with that.
And you did it. You did it in spades. You did it so beautifully. So let's move on to Shelburne Farms as an educational nonprofit, predicating on cultivating learning for a sustainable future. Can you explain a little bit more about this mission?
Yeah. So as I said, we want to use this amazing place to invite people on a learning journey around sustainability. And then our focus has been largely around young people. So, helping, and the way to have the greatest impact is by working with educators who, spend their careers working with multiple classes. It's really about supporting education that's tied to place and community, and engages young people in developing a sense that they can make a difference in the world.
So how many students do you think you reach in a year with your
Oh,
program?
well, we have, so our, direct service programs on the farm, we have probably, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but 8 to 10,000 probably young people come through the programs. Our children's farmyard has, before COVID, we had, I don't know, 30,000 families and kids come through there. We, work with probably around 1,500 educators this year. Both, some will come for institutes on site, but we also work virtually now, or our educators go to other schools and communities.
So some of the finest Vermont products are grown, milked, and created at Shelburne Farms, notably your cheeses and your breads, and I believe your hams too. At least in your gift baskets, you have the best hams ever. Talk a little bit with my viewers about regenerative agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, life ultimately rests on soil, I guess, healthy soil and healthy ecosystems. So to the extent, so our goal has been to farm in a way that is good for the environment and creates healthy food to help support healthy local food systems. So our dairy, as I said, that my dad started the dairy in 1952. And in the 70s, wholesale milk production was challenging. And so in the late 70s, we tried bottling raw milk, and we were, I think at one point, we were selling about 12,000 half gallons a week locally. We had a little truck going around to supermarkets. And then we transitioned that into making raw milk cheddar cheese in the early 80s. So that was a strategy for adding value to the milk to help, provide the revenue to help support the working landscape here and produce a wonderful product, that would help feed people and help sustain the organization. And with our woodlands too. So we have our working farmland that supports the dairy and the cheese making, and a small flock of sheep for lamb and a small beef herd. And then our woodland supports a maple sugaring operation now where we make about 1,200 gallons of syrup a year. And we've managed the woodlands for both the saw logs and the firewood, but also for wildlife and, and for people to enjoy through walking and that type of thing.
Do you think your parents would be proud of you for what you've done? Do you think they'd be all pumped and excited and enthusiastic?
Well, my mother outlived my dad by a few years, but no, I think my father would, he died in 1984 before this a lot, unfolded. So I think it would be fun to tour around with him. Sure. I think it'd feel great to see the dairy still going, and just kind of probably be amazed to see the large buildings, because he had decided to basically abandon or let go of the major, estate buildings. He didn't foresee a future, he wasn't trying to bring back the private estate qualities. He was just trying to make it work as a working dairy.
So for him to see what you've done with
But to see the public enjoying kids and stuff, I think, yeah, it'd be fun.
and all the events that you show and the events that you hold there.
Yeah.
So Alec, share with us the history of this land that you steward, and the Abenaki influence that you so honor today.
Well, yeah, this land, I mean, it's an amazing piece of property, and that 10,000 years or more ago, the Abenaki were here, and we're trying to really work on acknowledging the whole story of the land here, and not just start with the Webbs coming to town. So as in the rest of Vermont, the Abenaki, were displaced and the land taken by the European settlement that happened, and then at Shelburne Farms that ended up being like a community of 30 something farms that were going in the mid 1980s. And then when my great grandparents came to town, they purchased those, I think 36 farms and consolidated them into what's Shelburne Farms today. Actually, it was a larger property at that time. And they brought in Frederick Law Olmsted to help kind of conceptualize the layout. And that's why when you come in, it feels more park-like, or it's not like a typical Vermont landscape. So the curvilinear road systems and the way the plantings were developed to kind of highlight different spatial relationships and views, that was Olmsted's influence, which was pretty great because Olmsted did Central Park and other parks, but I think the story goes that he was interested in working with private properties like this that he thought might someday, go into the public realm, because that was his real interest, was in creating spaces that everybody could enjoy, not just the wealthy few.
So what brought your great grandparents or your grandparents? What brought them to Vermont? And what brought them to Vermont and that piece of land?
Yeah, well, my great grandfather married Lila Vanderbilt, and her family was in the railroad business. So I guess he came up to look at the railroads or whatever, and they fell in love with this area and ended up after she, I guess, didn't have a real concept of, she inherited $10 million in the 1880s, and they used that fortune to, buy land and build Shelburne Farms. But they weren't particularly good business people, though. It was kind of like they won the lottery and they spent it well, but
you and the world are benefactors of that, but they weren't farmers.
No, well, he was totally into horses, so he built these big barns to breed and use horses to maintain the property. And she was very, loved gardens and horticulture. So she was behind developing the gardens, the flower gardens near the inn.
And Shelburne Museum was started by?
My grandfather's brother married Electra Havemeyer. So it was a family connection there. Yeah.
That's the museum, which is an extraordinary asset. So talk to us a little bit about Shelburne Farms Institute for Sustainable Schools. And as we all know, it will be our youth who save what will be their future. So how is Shelburne Farms helping them in that quest?
Well, so as I mentioned, Megan Camp came here in the early 80s and has been building our program outreach, and has developed a lot of partnerships around the world. And so the Institute for Sustainable Schools really is the culmination of a lot of that effort with her colleagues, who we've got this amazing crew of educators here. So the Institute for Sustainable Schools is the umbrella for our work with educators and supporting this network of educators who are committed to educating for sustainability. And we have a great partnership, a longtime partnership with the University of Vermont that's, through various colleges, but they're our lead partner in the Institute, and they have a certificate program in education for sustainability that may evolve into a graduate.
And I can assume that many of my viewers, that their children may have gone through a program at Shelburne Farms.
Yeah, so when educators or teachers come here with their kids, they can learn how to use a place like Shelburne Farms to enhance their learning experiences. But the goal isn't to have every child in Vermont or the world come to Shelburne Farms. It's for every community in Vermont and around the world to have educators who can have the skills and the confidence to use their local community resources and special places as extensions of their learning environment. So that'll be the real measure of success.
So you're teaching the teachers to teach.
Yes, yeah.
Because that's how it works. But I think we all remember that the recycling program in Vermont was actually started by the children.
Yeah, well, that's,
brought it to their parents and said, why are you throwing that out? So anyway,
yeah, yeah,
bless our sweet children. So
yeah.
I want to touch a little bit on your brother, Marshall Webb,
Mhm.
passed away last summer, and it was a deep and profound loss to all of us and many people around the world, but especially to you and your family. Can you share with us the Marshall Webb Earth Day 2028 challenge, and how can my viewers get involved?
Mhm. Yep, so uh, one of our big organizational commitments is to improve our stewardship practices. And so, of course, with climate change being such a global issue, we want to become, or we've set the goal of becoming net zero or beyond net zero by 2028 in our practices. And largely, I mean, just to be good stewards of what we're responsible for, but also to help build this inspiring learning environment so that it can be a place where people can see how we went about that process and what it might look like. So and that's part of an ongoing fundraising efforts. We have a climate action fund that we're raising funds to first put together our planning framework for achieving net zero, and then of course it'll take a significant investment to accomplish it. So
you're creating within your environment at Shelburne Farms an example of sustainable practices. So for my viewers, if you are interested in supporting Shelburne Farms and supporting the Marshall Webb Earth Day 2028, you can go to the website shelburnefarms.org and make a donation, and that would be, we all would be very grateful for you to do that. Well, that's just fabulous, Alec, and bless your sweet brother's heart. What would your words of wisdom for our children today who are facing planet warming, hence the last few days, attacks on our democracy and other challenges that for them seem so daunting?
wow. Let's see. I guess that we can all make it. We can all make a difference, in our that together, that like if we all do what we can. Actually, I just found this amazing quote that was this book called Buddha's Brain by Rick Hanson, but he said, "You will do it." This quote this is from somebody named Nkosi Johnson. Do all that you can with all that you have, in the time that you have, in the place that you are. And I was thinking I might add, with the people and community you love. But I think we just, with whatever resources we have, and for young people, I think it's to, to be young, and then as you grow older, grow into a kind of have the, if every kid had the sense that they could make a difference in their lives, that would be so wonderful.
Well, it's tough for kids today, especially given the pandemic and what they're seeing on TV, and and especially those that who are disenfranchised. It's very difficult. So as we face 85-degree weather over the past few days, which has been very beautiful, all the daffodils have blossomed, but it is disturbing in a way. What is your hope for humanity's future 25, 50 years down the road? What do you see?
Well, let's see. That you've got such diversion. You have a lot of reason for hope and a lot of reason for pessimism. I think that I don't know.
Well, let me help you here. All the children and all the students and the teachers and the people that you're putting through Shelburne Farms, they're the hope for the future, and you must see that every day in the work that you and your team are doing. Give you great hope.
Yes, that's true. Yep. I mean, And I think the biggest hope would be that the people like ourselves who have access to opportunity and resources that many don't, that everybody really uses them to in every possible way for the betterment of all. I mean, that's I think that's the real hope, perhaps, that will happen.
You're here. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up, because I've been thinking about this for the last 5 or 6 years, the word sustainability doesn't really work for me anymore, because I don't know if we can sustain what we have with where we are. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing the word used a lot amongst environmentalists, the word adaptability.
Mhm.
Where do you land on that, Alec?
I love adaptability, resilience, but I'm still hanging in there with sustainability, not because it's, who wants to just be sustainable, but on the other hand, there's a lot of good things in that word, in terms of long-term thinking. So to me, it's more, it doesn't have the quality of life thing that jumps out, but I think the importance of thinking long-term, that's what sustainability still resonates for me about. It's like not just looking at short-term decisions.
How far out do you think?
Well, until the sun goes out, I guess. I don't know.
Until the sun
So
goes.
we're
Good
working on that's a long time frame, but
Good for you, Alec Webb, until the sun goes out. Well, I have no doubt you're going to be around. I don't know where or where you're going to be, but you're going to be making a big difference wherever you are. In closing, this is kind of fun. Can you tell my viewers what baby animals they can see and pet at your farmyard?
I think we have some goats and some the cutest baby lambs now. We aren't really officially open. I mean, the trails are open, but people can swing by. The goats, the sheep. We'd have a calf up there in the summer, and
Yeah,
but I think the goats are probably my favorite.
the cutest. Well,
They're
goat
really
yoga, goat yoga now, where baby goats are helping people get through yoga. Well, listen, we've come to the end of this interview, and I just want to tell you that for many, many years, I've admired you and loved you, and the work that you and your family have done and your team is extraordinary. So I want to thank you for your time to be on my show, and I wish you a beautiful day, Alec.
Well, thanks, Melinda. There was somebody once told me that my main job is thanking people, and I feel like I never do that adequately. But thank you, and I just, for people who are seeing this who have been supporting the farm, I just want to thank everybody. It's been an amazing community that's making Shelburne Farms possible. So
It's a great village.
yeah, it really is.
Really a great community. And to my viewers, I want to thank you for watching my show, and I will see you shortly. Enjoy this day, and I say goodbye.
Thanks.
I want to stop the recording. What did I do? Well, anyway, we'll just keep it recording.
Yeah.
They'll cut it out.
Yeah.
So that went very well. Are you happy with that?
I think so. We'll see how it play. I hope I don't suffer too much watching it.
No, it was fantastic. You did a beautiful job, Alec.
Oh,
And I
thanks.
thank you for taking the time on this day to be with me. And you were great. And I hope the questions were fulfilling for you.
Yeah, no, you do a great job. I'm in total awe of you and people like you who get out there and